Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Beta Bay Ball. I'm your host, Justin Theriot, and it's been a minute. I had my wisdom teeth removed 12 days ago now, 12 or 11 days ago, last Friday. It was an alright process. The people at the dentist office, one of the CNAs was cool in the way that like I didn't have to worry about her. The other CNA made, a weird comment about being out late at night, having a good night the night before, but she made sure to mention she went right to sleep when she got home. And it was my first time ever having like an IV or anything like that. And it took the dentist 4 tries to get it in. So it was definitely an odd experience. And then obviously the recovery kind of sucked in the sense that like I felt like I didn't really get prescribed very much. My ibuprofen prescription felt kind of low. That was all I got prescribed. Obviously, antibiotics as well. And then obviously, it just sucked eating food. I saw this hilarious TikTok where it was like, I am not someone who like eats food to survive. I live to eat food. Like I need good food, and not being able to eat good food for a long time really sucked. But we're back. We haven't recorded since the first round of the NBA draft, so second round came and went. I hadn't recorded anything, and I don't know if there's really much to react about it. I really like that the Suns got Rasheer Fleming. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Why don't we just pull it up? I don't know why. I spent all this time kind of pulling up sites that I wanted to look at for free agency, just because it's kind of hard to look. It's kind of hard to track where everybody is at this point. So much has happened. Obviously, I wish I could have recorded after the first 2 days of free agency. That way I could have been on top of everything, but just the way my mouth was feeling, that was just impossible. So really today has been the first time where I'm like, all right, I have the day off. I have free time today, and I can go ahead and have this, record the podcast. I don't like this because I can already tell that this website that I'm looking at here, because I know you guys, most of you guys listen on audio. The site that I'm looking at is saying like the team that drafted them, not or the original pick, not who actually drafted them. Yes, okay. So the Phoenix Suns get Rasheer Fleming, which I really liked. Cockburner went to the Hornets. I thought that was a really good pick. Although I'm scared about how many minutes he's going to have to play as a rookie. Janai Broom to the Sixers. Interesting to see how much he'll play as a rookie given his age. Adu Thiero to the Lakers, the same kind of thing. Chaz Lanier to the Pistons. They're going to need him to kind of have at least the same impact that. I guess it's different because he's not going to have the same impact that. I'm blanking on the guy Ron Holland had, because Holland was an early pick and was a physical guy. But I think they're going to need Lanier to give him something off the bench, even if it's as the ninth or 10th guy during the regular season, just because of what's going on with Malik Beasley right now. Cam Jones, I really like that pick for Indiana. He'll be able to be a backup ball handler, which will be a really important role this season, considering Halliburton will miss the whole season. It's been announced like there's no chance of him coming back later in the year. And then obviously even in the finals, it felt like Halliburton was the only guy that could beat the press. Kobe Brea, I like that pick as well for the Suns. I like this pick. Jameer Watkins to the Wizards. I thought the Wizards had a really good draft. Amiri Williams to the Celtics. I don't really know much about him besides that he's a physical, freak of a guy. I like Tyrese Proctor to the Cavs. Maybe you get a Ty Jerome replacement in there. And then, I don't really have much to say about. Max Shulga to the Celtics. I got to watch Max Shulga play in person. Really fun player to watch at VCU. So maybe he'll be able to do something for the Celtics. But I have a feeling he's going to be a G League guy. But we see J.D. Davidson maybe get an opportunity this season to really play for the Celtics. At the end of I already covered everything about the first round. So now we're going to start with free agency. That's the point of today, and kind of talked about all the signings, who I feel like has won free agency. And I'm still having a hard time if I want to go down like team by team and say like do I think they've won free agency? Do I like the draft and sort of the offseason so far? I think that's what I do. I think I'll start here. Obviously, we'll go in alphabetical order and start with the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks to me are a top 4, maybe 5, maybe even top 3 winner of free agency, or the offseason, I mean, in general. Obviously, they came away with why am I blanking on the name? They came away with Kristaps Porzingis, and they didn't really give up much to go get him. They gave up, I believe it was the 22nd overall pick in a 3-team trade between the Celtics and the Nets. So really not much to go and get that guy. They got a second-round pick swap. Yeah, so it ended up being Drake Powell that Brooklyn drafted with that pick. So that's okay. You got off the Terrence Mann and George Niang contracts, which have some years left on them. And Porzingis is on the last year of his deal. So it's really a year where Porzingis has to play very, very well. We don't know what's going to go on with his health situation, not just from an injury standpoint, but with an illness he seems to have been dealing with for a very long time now. But I mean, you bought uber low on a guy that could really do a lot for your team. I see the Hawks as a team that could maybe even be a top 4 seed in the East and have home court advantage in the postseason, at least for the first round. So we'll talk about standing predictions and NBA tiers, team tiers later in this offseason, but definitely I think Atlanta has done a fantastic job. They signed Luke Kennard to a 1-year deal, and it was kind of expensive, but I like the deal. It gives you more spacing. It gives you more shooting. I think we all know at this point that if you just surround Trae Young with shooting, like that's a good strategy. That's a thing that'll work. And you can also surround him with defense, which is what they did with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I really like this pickup for him. I felt like his contract wasn't too big. It was about around the mid-level exception, maybe a little bit higher. We'll pull up this website. It should be on here. Nickeil Alexander-Walker got a $15.5 million AAV over 4 years. I really, really like that. I think this is a guy that, adding him to this defense, he could be the guy that, takes the number 2 assignment every single night, which is what he did for Minnesota, who was a very good basketball team last year. I mean, you obviously still have Dyson Daniels. I mean, this is a really, really good team. You know what we're going to do? Let's pull up NBA depth charts, and let's see if maybe this will be easier for me to look at so I can read off to you guys. Also, be helpful to people that are going to watch on YouTube. Is this what I want to look at? If it'll load. Yeah, this is what I want to look at. Atlanta's not loading now, so that's fantastic. So I don't need this. We'll close this for now, and we'll go back over here, but Atlanta's not loading. Yeah, so here's what Atlanta looks like right now. You got Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Zachary Richase, Jalen Johnson, Kristaps Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Onyeka Okongwu. I thought Muhammad Gay was really good last year. Still don't really know what Kobe Buffkin can become. And then Asa Newell I thought was a really good draft pick at pick 20. 23 or 22? I really liked that pick. It was 23. I really liked that pick for them. I think that became really good value. And then they have a couple of these guys who are still free agents. Maybe they'll end up bringing back 1 or 2 of them. But yeah, I think Atlanta did a really good job this offseason. I think your defense, I don't know if I would say this is a team that's going to be top 10 in offense and in defense, but I think that's not, totally crazy to think. I think that this is a team that's probably going to be top 15 in defense. If you remember, Indiana was really, really bad at defense 2 years ago, and then this season they were the 19th ranked defense, just kind of based on their pace of play. Obviously, it's kind of difficult to keep your breath and get as many stops, and you're allowing your opponent to get so many possessions. But I could totally see Atlanta kind of being in that same boat where they play really, really great team basketball. You have your amazing point guard who, in the case of Atlanta, can score a lot better than Tyrese Halliburton, and you've surrounded him with guys that can not only knock down shots but are elite level defenders. You have your wings in Zachary Richase and Jalen Johnson, so I really, really do like it for Atlanta. I'm excited to see how much Asa Newell can contribute as a rookie, and I'm really, really hoping that Jalen Johnson stays healthy, because I believe that Jalen Johnson could be an all-star in the East this season, especially given all the guys that won't be playing this year. I mean, this is a team that realistically, let's say Jalen Johnson is an all-star, you have maybe 4 kind of all-star level players. Trae Young's obviously an all-star, all-NBA level player. Dyson Daniels provides you defense to the point where you could say he's an all-star. He's definitely a defensive all-star, all-defensive type player, defensive player of the year. I think he won defensive player of the year. I don't think I'm tripping on that. I think he did win D-Boy. Zachary Richase, I think he looked really, really good down the stretch of the season. Fantastic off-ball mover, which is fantastic with all these guys. They don't really necessarily have a backup ball handler, but we saw that the Wolves were willing to trade trust Nickeil Alexander-Walker to do that in the postseason. So Nah can definitely do that, I think, for Atlanta this season. But I don't think it would hurt for them to add maybe one more wing or one more ball handler. Moving on to the Boston Celtics, this has been really a terrible offseason for them in a weird way. You kind of knew that they had to shed a lot of guys. They had to get beneath the second apron, and I'm not even sure if they're beneath the second apron. And now what's interesting about that is the Boston Celtics, in my opinion, will probably end up trading Anthony Simons at least before the trade deadline, because if you didn't know, NBA teams aren't forced to pay the second apron tax until after the trade, or until the trade deadline. So they have until then to get offered the Anthony Simons contract. I don't know if anyone's really going to want George Niang. Maybe I thought they should have gotten off of Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser's getting paid more than Peyton Pritchard. He's getting paid more than George Niang. I thought it would have been a good idea to get off of Sam Hauser this offseason. If it was me, I would have attached him to Kristaps Porzingis. That way maybe you could have gotten a little bit more, maybe draft capital in return for Sam Hauser. I also would have rather had anyone else come back for the Celtics rather than George Niang. I get maybe he fits from, like, maybe he is the right player to add for the Boston Celtics in terms of scheme fit. Nobody hit more corner three. Like, he was top 10 in the NBA in corner threes last season, so he's very fine sitting in the coffin corner and just knocking down the shot when the ball comes to him. He's not a terrible defender given his size and his frame, but obviously everyone knows how Celtics players like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum feel about him. There's a lot of animosity there, so that'll have to get ironed out. I do think there's a very real possibility the Celtics are true to their word and don't move off of Derek White and Jaylen Brown. I think the only chance Celtics would have moved off of Jaylen Brown was if the Spurs came with that number 2 pick or with Stephon Castle and etc. But yeah, I'm for the Celtics this season. I am excited to see, in terms of what you can be excited for. It will be exciting for guys. The Celtics are a team that have been so great for the last 4 years specifically, right? And all these conference finals runs that they've been on. That you really just haven't seen them get their young guys some minutes. So I think the Jordan Walsh, the Baylor Shiremans, like those will be fun guys to watch. Luka Garza and, in my opinion, Josh Minott have good per 36 numbers. So maybe seeing those guys get a chance to play more, I would really like it. I think that if you did end up trading Anthony Simons, you'd probably see a world where maybe Pritchard comes into the starting lineup, you move Derek White to the 2, or maybe you see Hauser go into the starting lineup at the 2, or maybe you trade Hauser as well and you see Baylor Shireman kind of somehow become a starter for this team as they I don't want to say do a mini tank or a mini rebuild, but that is kind of what it is, with obviously Tatum not missing the entire season. He might come back at the very end of the year. Outside of that, their centers are probably the worst in the NBA. I like Neemias Queta. I wasn't a Xavier Tillman fan, and I say was because I just think that he's not as good as I once thought when he was in Memphis, and maybe if he's able to get back to his peak Memphis form, he could be something for the Celtics. If we look up Xavier Tillman's stats, what was he doing that year? Like, am I misremembering him being a starter for that Memphis team? Yeah, he started 29 games, 15 games, averaging 7 points. His rebounds, they weren't that high. So maybe he wasn't as good as I remembered him being. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think they have the worst centers in the NBA probably, and they don't really have a lot of flexibility to go out and do something. I am interested to see if J.D. Davison somehow gets a chance to play. This guy's already a G League all-time leader in points for the Celtics. I think he's only like 24 years old, so I am excited to see if he does get a chance. Moving on to the Brooklyn Nets. They've been a really big loser, in my opinion, of this offseason. I think that it was a mistake to go in and use all of your picks. They still haven't offered Cam Thomas a contract. I know it's rumored that he wants between $25 and $30 million, and it's not worth giving Cam Thomas that money. I hope he does get paid, though. He was a late first-round pick, so he hasn't really gotten paid much yet for what he's done. But yeah, I thought it was stupid to use all 5 first-round picks and not really trade up. And not only used all 5 first-round picks, but if you look at my screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're not, I'll explain it to you. I mean, 1, 2, 3 the point guards: Igor Demon, Nolan Traore, and Ben Seraph. 3 point guard rookies. How are all of them going to play? Then you have Jalen Wilson. How is he going to continue to develop? Especially when you have Terrence Mann, his large contract in front of him. Keon Johnson, Zaire Williams, how will their playing time be affected by the Michael Porter now? Because Michael Porter is now a Brooklyn Net, and right now we'll talk about the trade from the Brooklyn Nets perspective. You take on a 2032 first-round pick unprotected from Denver. I don't think we're going to be seeing Jokic play at that age, and if he is, I still don't think the Nuggets will be amazing. So I think that's a good idea to go and get that pick. So you didn't necessarily miss out on Cam Johnson, peak value. You still went out and you still got a good first round pick. Michael Porter Jr., that is a big contract at $38 million. I really don't know how many years. Let's look up MPJ contract. How many more years is left on the MPJ contract? Let's take a look at this MPJ contract. Yeah, wow. Oh no, okay, one more year. After this year, it'll only be one more year, so really not a bad idea for Brooklyn. I don't hate it, I suppose. So really not a bad trade from Brooklyn's perspective, but this is probably going to be the NBA's worst team next season. I mean, there's just so much going on here, and yet they still have better centers than the Boston Celtics. I mean, Danny Wolf will be interesting at the next level. I don't think he's going to be that good. He's not going to be good defensively. I think he would need to be partnered with a power forward who's a better defender. And how is he going to be able to show off his ball handling guard skills at the center position when all you did was draft a bunch of other guys in that role? Drake Powell, I don't think is a terrible pick. I think the kid's got a lot of athleticism, and he could become this great defensive player at the next level, and maybe the scoring can come along. But when you look at their depth chart, he is legit in the middle here at the bottom, right? Like, I really just don't know how he's going to see the court at all with this team, especially if they bring back Cam Thomas. I really don't know how he's going to see the court. This is a guy that's going to be playing a lot of minutes this year with the Long Island Nets. Although I don't think he's on a okay. Yeah, I just don't like it for them. But I will say I think the Brooklyn Nets end up trading Nick Claxton to the Lakers or somebody like that. Because I think the Lakers, you can't just rock it out with DeAndre Ayton, and we'll get to that. Excuse me, big yawn right there. But yeah, I think this Brooklyn Nets team is the worst so far in the NBA, and I don't really like what they've done this offseason. Besides, of course, I think the Cam Johnson trade was a good idea. Now we have the Charlotte Hornets, and they got a lot going on here. And they, Lamelo, Brandon Miller, Concacaf, Miles Bridges, and Diabate. I think Diabate will probably start over Plumlee. And then off your bench, you got Spencer Dinwiddie, Colin Sexton, Josh Green, Grant Williams, Mason Plumlee, Trey Mann. And then you have, Liam McNeely there as well. Obviously, they drafted McNeely and Concacaf and Cockburner. I like those draft picks for them, but they just got, and Sion James as well, they just got a lot going on. I mean, what is this? This is 20, right? Yeah, 20 players on this team. You can only carry 15, so KJ, Ba, Salon's going to probably rot in the G League, despite the fact that he was a top 8 pick. I mean, I just don't see what they're going to do here. I'd imagine that they're going to probably find trade partners for one of Josh Green or Grant Williams at some point during the season. I think this is a team that could potentially be a play-in team in the Eastern Conference with how kind of whack the Eastern Conferences, but really what I want to see this season from the Charlotte Hornets, I'd like to see LaMelo stay healthy for the full season, and more than LaMelo staying healthy for the full season, I want to see Brandon Miller stay healthy for the full season. I think Brandon Miller could do a lot in his development for this team. I think Concacaf is going to provide great spacing for this team, and I think he'll be good right away. Diabate, I'm excited to see he's going to kind of develop as an NBA center. Colin Sexton, it'll be kind of fun to see him with Charlotte, a team that's a little bit more relevant than Utah, though not that relevant. The Trey Mann contract at 824, I liked for Trey Mann and for Charlotte. He was really good in the games that he did play last season, despite the fact that he got injured early on. And yeah, I just don't know where Tajon Salon is going to end up getting minutes. I really, really don't. You're going to have to move one of Josh Green or Grant Williams to even get this kid into the lineup. Maybe he ends up sliding up and playing some 5 in place of Mason Plumlee, but you'd almost rather have Ron Cockburner doing that. So really just a total mess here in Charlotte. But I am happy to sort of see them add guys. I will say this could be Charlotte's best season since 2021, which isn't saying a lot. If we go and look at let's look at Charlotte Hornets here on the laptop and basketball reference. I didn't type in reference. Like, I forgot how many wins they had in 2021, but I could very much see a world where this is their best season since then. Yeah, so 43 wins. I think they could win more than 27 games this season. I really, really do. I think they'll definitely win more than 21 and 19, which is how many they've won in the last 2 years. So, yeah, maybe there is a world where they somehow end up with 43 wins, but I kind of highly doubt that. I think that we're more likely... I closed that damn website. I like what Charlotte's done, but at the same time, it's kind of still a mess right now. So I really don't know, what they're gonna go ahead and do this season, because I think this is a team, if any, that's gonna end up making some mid-season moves for sure. Next up, the Chicago Bulls. What a messy offseason. You draft Noah Asingay. You still haven't traded Nikola Vucevic. You still haven't traded Ayo Dosunmu. I like the contract that you gave Trey Johnson, 3 years, $24 million. You still haven't brought back Josh Giddey. He's asking for $30 million. Nobody's came and offer him that because he is a restricted free agent. So it's not like he's even gotten like an offer sheet that you could go and match. So I really don't know what's going to happen with Josh Giddey. There's a world where maybe some team, decides they want to pony up and give him a big contract, but I kind of doubt that, so they're probably going to get him back on a cheaper deal. Yeah, this team to me is sort of just a total mess. Lots of money tied up in some random guys between Javon Carter, Patrick Williams. I thought the contract was terrible, obviously, last year. They went ahead and traded for Isaac Okoro, Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro straight up. Just absolutely terrible. Last season, you traded away Alex Caruso for Giddey. Now you haven't even re-signed Giddey after he was good for you. And you didn't get any draft capital back for a guy that ended up being instrumental in OKC's championship run. And they had 17 first-round picks to give you. So really just kind of a trash trade last year in the Giddey trade. And now again, Cleveland could have given you draft capital. You could have gotten somebody interesting from them. Instead, you just take back Isaac Okoro, who feels like a Bulls player, another guy from that Patrick Williams draft class who just hasn't really caught on yet. Both these guys were top 5 picks in that class. So this Bulls team, I see a peak of a 9 seed, and I think a 9 seed for them would be like if Matas Buzelis had a fantastic year and you do end up bringing back Josh Giddey, and him and Kobe White are absolutely fantastic, because this was a team that I think was top 5 or top 3 in 3-point rate and 3-point percentage last season. So they play a fun brand of offense, and that's what they did down the stretch of last season. They were a more fun team to watch, right, with Giddey, White, Dosunmu, Jones, and then Matas Buzelis as well. Vooch wasn't bad, was good, was decent down the stretch of last season. Everything else here, though, like Julian Phillips, DeLon Terry, like these guys are just getting put on the back burner, so you feel for them. If you do end up bringing back Giddey, you have these 4 guards that it's kind of hard to balance minutes between the 4 of them. Your small forward position's kind of a nightmare with between Okoro and Williams. And then how does Noah Asingay sort of come along here for the Bulls? So Bulls, to me, probably going to be a play-in team. I don't see a world where they'd be a top 8 seed, they haven't really done anything of note in free agency besides bring back guys that they already had, and then of course making the Isaac Okoro trade. Next up, Cleveland Cavaliers. For them, I really did like the Okoro for Lonzo Ball trade. Lonzo actually did end up, is on a contract that is bigger than what than Ty Jerome got. I think that a lot of people, including myself, were shocked at what Ty Jerome got in free agency. I think it was like 3 years, $28 or $27 million from Memphis, which was a really good signing for my opinion in Memphis. But honestly, I think it's good that Cleveland got off of him. Ty Jerome is not a good defender. Ty Jerome cannot play very well off the ball, so it's really difficult to imagine him on the court at the same time as Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and he was not very good in the postseason. Now, for the rest of this team, you went out and you signed Larry Nance Jr. Like I mentioned, you got the Lonzo Ball trade. I think what they should do with Lonzo is sort of what OKC did with Isaac Okoro this past season, where they sort of insulated him, kept him healthy, kept him with a very white very light workload until the postseason. That way he was fully healthy and ready to go. And I'd like to see the Cavaliers do that again. I think the Cavs will end up having the best record in the NBA this season, maybe even better than OKC. Maybe not, but I think those would be the best two records in the NBA. They'll definitely be the 1 or the 2 seed in the East. It would be a disappointment and a shocker, and somebody would have had to get hurt for that to not be the case. They brought back Sam Merrill on a contract similar to that of Ty Jerome's. Sam Merrill is a better defender. He kind of fits what Cleveland needs more than what Jerome did. He's an off-ball guy, catch-and-shoot guy, plays better defense. So I thought that was a good idea for Cleveland. Outside of that, you really didn't do anything interesting. You got Craig Porter and Luke Travers from last year's draft. Naquan Tomlin as well. And then you still have some interesting free agents that I doubt we see them bring back. I really don't think they're going to bring back Javonte Green. I don't know if Javonte Green will land with any NBA team. He might be a midseason signing. And somebody I'm sort of sad to still be a free agent is Emoni Bates. If I was the GM of the Celtics, I would have already given Emoni Bates the minimum. I don't even know if they're allowed to, but I would. I like Emoni Bates. I think I've always been a believer. I think there's still something in there for him. But yeah, in general, I do really like what the Cavs got going this season. I think that the Cavs don't make it to the conference finals, this team's getting blown up, and in the sense that it'll be one of either Garland or Jarrett Allen to go. I think they're going to stick with Mitchell and Mobley regardless. But yeah, I do think this is a team that it's NBA Finals or bust, obviously, and I think it'll be very, 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 very disheartening and kind of, very disappointing, obviously, if they don't end up making it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. I also did like the Tyrese Proctor pick. I think Proctor could kind of take on the role that Ty Jerome had as he develops over time. Moving on to the Dallas Mavericks, obviously they get Cooper Flagg first overall. I did really personally like the D'Angelo Russell signing at 2 years, $12 million or something like that. I think that's a really good signing for them as they wait for Kyrie Irving to get healthy again. So I very much liked that for them. I mean, this team. This is probably This is definitely a playoff team in the Western Conference. I don't know if I don't think they'll end up avoiding the play-in. I think the only bad contracts here is is the Caleb Martin contract. But everybody else, everything else about this team I really, really like. I mean, look at the depth on this team. This is a team that is genuinely 10 deep. Especially when Kyrie's healthy. So when Kyrie's healthy, you have Kyrie, Clay, Cooper, AD, Derek Lively. And then I think that then you'd obviously be able to run D'Angelo Russell, Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Max Christie, Jaden Hardy. Brandon Williams looked good at times last season, and then Caleb Martin, I think he really needs to bounce back and show you something, but you have, 12, 13 guys on this team, so this, not to mention Omax Prosper, so this team has a little bit of a ways to go in figuring out what they're going to look like, their identity is going to look like, all of that jazz, what kind of lineups will we see? Will we see AD at the 5 and Cooper at the 4? And then will that slide PJ Washington in at the 3? Will D'Lo play alongside Kyrie Irving instead of Clay? All of those questions. Could Cooper somehow, become such a good ball handler that you could even slide him down and sort of go massive, and find a way to get PJ or Najee into the starting 5 as well? So this is a very fun team in Dallas. I'm really excited to see what they do next season. The West is going to be a total bloodbath. I think the West is probably 13 teams deep, maybe 12 teams deep in terms of who's actually going to be competing. So yeah, I'm very excited to see the Dallas Mavericks this upcoming season. In terms of free agency signings, they haven't brought in anyone outside of D'Angelo Russell, so not much to talk about that. And then obviously in the draft, I like the undrafted signing of a Ryan Ebenhard. And then I really don't have much to say about the other guys that they ended up drafting or signing. Now, on to the Denver Nuggets. I very much like the Cam Johnson trade. I don't care about a 2032 unprotected first. That doesn't mean anything to me when you have Nikola Jokic right now and you're trying to win titles. So fine, go ahead, give him up. You bring in Cam Johnson, who is making $17 million less. So now all of a sudden you have all this money that you can throw around, and boy, did they use that money. You went out and signed Bruce Brown, who had the best years of his career in Denver, I know the last 2 years have not been good for Bruce Brown, but you have to remember Bruce Brown was sort of given that contract by the Pacers to be traded. Like, that was the idea. That's why we see some of these guys get kind of overpaid, because, that's why when we talk about the Raptors, I think I'll bring that up. Like, these bigger contracts for guys that might not deserve it, it allows for them to be traded more easily. So I think we see a world where that's why we did see a world where Bruce Brown got traded for Siakam, and then he got traded for Brandon Ingram, and he really never got a chance to play, consistent minutes, because he was also dealing with injuries. So now I'm happy to see here back in Denver. He knows where to be, and that's really, really important next to Jokic. If you know where to be, Jokic will find you. He's a good three-point shooter. He's won an NBA Finals with this Denver Nuggets team, and we saw Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson get their feet wet last season, but I think you live in a world now where you would trust Bruce Brown over those guys, and you definitely would have rather had him last season in the last postseason as compared to Strawther and Watson. I also like the Tim Hardaway Jr. signing. MPJ was a three-point chucker for you, for good and for better, for worse, and Cam Johnson could do the same, yes, but Tim Hardaway Jr. is a guy that started 70 games last year for the 6th seed in the East. He's a guy that shoots very, very well from three, had a fantastic year, and he can be a microwave at times, and he can be inconsistent as well. I think he is a fantastic addition, and there really is no risk involved if you're the Denver Nuggets. I mean, you got him on the vets minimum, so where's the harm in that? I think the best move they made outside the Cam Johnson trade was they also went ahead and traded Dario Saric, who was dead weight, unplayable, for Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas Valanciunas is easily the best center they've had to back up Nikola Jokic. He almost left for Greece, but it seems as though he'll be staying here in Denver, so really, really like that for Denver. Jonas probably won't play crazy minutes in the postseason. Maybe he'll only play 8 minutes a night in the postseason, maybe less, but that's better than what they were getting from DeAndre Jordan a season ago, so I really like that for them. As long as he can sort of keep them afloat or not let them at least die in the non-Jokic minutes, I think this will be very good. I also think his defensive where he's a defensive liability is very similar to where Jokic's liability, just very slow-footed and whatnot. So I think your defense can stay the same with one or the other on the floor. I also think Jonas can get you a bucket. This is a guy who I think Jonas would easily be the best center on, if we go back through the teams we've already looked at, Jonas would be the best center on, not the Bulls, but he would be the best center on the Hornets. He would be the best center on the Celtics. I guess that's it so far, but we have a lot of more NBA teams to look at. Jonas would probably start on what I would guess is like 10 NBA teams, right? Like, he'd be the starter for the Warriors. He'd be the starter for the Pacers. He'd be the starter for the Memphis Grizzlies. He would be the starter for maybe the Pelicans. I don't know. I remember when he used to play there. My point is Jonas is a really good center, and I really do like that move for Denver. He's immediately their best backup center in the Jokic era. And then obviously DaRon Holmes is coming back from injury, and DaRon Holmes being an A10 guy, a Dayton guy, I'm excited to see DaRon Holmes get a chance to play a little bit. And then obviously the internal development of a group like Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, and Jalen Pickett. Russell Westbrook is still an unrestricted free agent. We could see them do a sign and trade with maybe Sacramento. He's been linked there, but probably not after they went out and got Dennis Schroeder. Now on to the Detroit Pistons. They're in a difficult situation. Malik Beasley being invested for gambling. Kind of terrible situation. Really sucks to see. We've already seen them go out and replace him with a combination of Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. And then, obviously, we also Ron Holland changed his number from 00 to 5. So it seems as though Malik is gone for this Pistons team. It's just a shame because Malik seems to be going out, dealing with a lot in his personal life. Rumors of how much money he owes to different people, whether it's landlords or dentists or gambling debts potentially. And it's a shame that he just had the best year of his career and he won't be able to cash out on that. So it's just a shame, and you feel for Malik Beasley, but he put himself in this position. So just tough situation for all parties involved. But as for Detroit, Jaden Ivey will be coming back from that broken fibula or tibula, so it'll be interesting to see how he looked coming back. He was really good. He was a 40% three-point shooter before the injury, so if Jaden Ivey can be a legitimate 40%, 38%, 39% three-point shooter, I don't think this Detroit Pistons team will miss a step, but I do think if Jaden Ivey comes out and he's a 35% three-point shooter, this team will be, maybe not as good as they were last year. Ausar, I'm very excited to see the step he takes, being that he's finally fully healthy for an offseason. You would hope, too, that Tobias doesn't take a step back. You got your contract for Jalen Duren. You brought back B-Ball, Paul Reed. I was hoping the Celtics would go out and get him. Still have Beef Stew. You went out and gave Duncan Robinson kind of a big contract. I know only the first year is guaranteed. The next 2 years aren't guaranteed. But I didn't really like the Duncan Robinson contract. I'm not a Duncan Robinson guy, and I think a lot of that is because I'm a Heat hater. But to me, Duncan Robinson is a guy whose defense is so atrocious that he is easy to play off the floor in a postseason setting. He's a guy that is a total... just utter liability on defense, like I just said. But I also his 3-point shot's amazing, but at the same time, there are stretches where he's not knocking it down. And if he's not knocking down the 3-point shot at a 40%, 38, 39% rate, there is no reason for him to be on the floor. Unlike Jaden Ivey, who can provide ball handling, who can make good passes and will give you effort on defense, I don't think Duncan gives you any of that. So I don't know how I feel about the Duncan Robinson contract, but you understand that Detroit was in a difficult position and they had to make a decision. I'm interested to see if Marcus Sasser does anything this year. Same with Chaz Lanier and Bobby Klitman. I like Bobby Klitman, a guy from Australia, originated from the Balkans, right? That's what it is. I don't know. I don't remember if he's from Sweden or Denmark or the Netherlands. He's from somewhere over there. I do like Ron Holland in the second year. I do think Ron Holland will take a second year jump. And then kind of an overpay for Karis LeVert. But what Karis does for you is he can kind of get his own buckets. Last season we saw the Detroit offense was utterly garbage after the Jaden Ivey. All right, it was utterly garbage when Cade wasn't on the floor and after the Jaden Ivey injury. So that's when they went out and they traded for Dennis Schroeder, and Schroeder was amazing for them, especially in the postseason, and thus Schroeder earned a pretty good bag from Sacramento. And we'll talk about how Sacramento has become the Bulls of the West. But Karis LeVert, kind of a bigger contract, but I don't hate it necessarily. I think he's going to be a guy that at times is going to keep the offense afloat when Karis LeVert is not out there. Moving on to the Golden State Warriors, this team, I really don't know what they're doing. They never do anything in the offseason. They never, ever do anything in the offseason. The Jonathan Kuminga sign-in trade will be interesting. I think they kind of tanked Jonathan Kuminga's value throughout the season. Steve Kerr did, not trusting him, but then he played in the postseason. When he played, he was really fun to watch. So all of a sudden, his value came back up a little bit, and I think they thought that people would really want to give them stuff for Kuminga. They thought the Bulls would want to give him stuff. They thought maybe the Kings or the Heat were going to want to give him stuff. And I still think those are the three teams he ends up on. I don't. Now that they've gone out and gotten Isaac Okoro, I don't think he ends up in Chicago. Now that Miami went out and got Norman Powell, I don't know if he really ends up in Miami. And with all the weird things going on in Sacramento, I just don't know. So, but they can't bring him back. I don't think Jonathan Kuminga can play another season under Steve Kerr. If you remember 2 years ago, it took Kuminga's agent kind of leaking to the press that he just was being kind of slighted in that locker room, and that he wanted to trade and he wanted out for Steve Kerr to finally play him, and he was good when he played. So I just think Steve Kerr, we all know he's kind of terrible with his rotations at times, and I think he has sort of ruined Jonathan Kuminga in this situation. I'm also surprised they still haven't brought back Gary Payton, and it doesn't seem like they will be bringing back Gary Payton. So now you're stuck with a team of Curry, Pods, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, Quentin Post, and then your centers, Post and Trace Jackson Davis. So I really don't know what this team is doing. I'd like to see them go get another center, anybody at this point. But to be honest, I think the Warriors will be a playoff team. How could you not be a playoff team with a big, I hate to say it, because I don't like Draymond Green, but a big three of Curry, Butler, and Green, surrounded by a Buddy Hield and a Brandon Podziemski. I think that's enough to get into the top 10 in the West, but not enough to win a postseason series. I think if they played the Rockets again, if these two rosters, even after Golden State finishes out their offseason, they figure out what they're doing with Jonathan Kuminga, I still don't think the Warriors could beat the Rockets again, given what the Rockets have done. So I think the Warriors, I'm happy they went out and did the Jimmy Butler trade last season, because it showed that they were actually willing to do something and not go out sad in the Curry era. But now he's getting $54 million, Curry's getting nearly $60 million. And Draymond's getting nearly $26 million. you're just in a difficult position. You really don't have much of flexibility, and I just don't see this team winning a playoff game. Now, if Denver isn't the winner of your NBA offseason, the Houston Rockets are your winners of the offseason. This team is absolutely disgusting. They declined the VanVleet option and then bring him back on a more team-friendly deal from $40 million to $25 million. Amen Thompson, another year of development. You make the Kevin Durant trade, absolutely fantastic trade. You give up Jalen Green, a guy you did not want. You gave up the 10th pick. You did not need that pick considering last year you had the 3rd pick and that guy barely saw the floor for you. It's just a really, really good... And then Dillon Brooks as well, but you've replaced Dillon Brooks with Dorian Finney-Smith, a better player, and also you have the internal development of a Tari Eason. You still have Jae'Sean Tate now on a league minimum, and Jabari Smith Jr. is developing as well. So I really do like this. I really did like that trade, like a lot for them. Kevin Durant is a guy that, in my opinion, is borderline still a top 10 NBA player. He's not this terrible defender that I think a lot of people label him as. I'm not saying he's a great defender. I'm not saying he's really a good defender, but I think he's a net neutral defender. And when you surround a net neutral defender with a VanVleet, an Amen Thompson, a Dorian Finney-Smith, a Tari Eason, and then a center group of Clint Capella and Steven Adams, as well as Jae'Sean Tate off the bench, I mean, holy cow. Just such a good offseason for them as well. I liked the Clint Capella signing. It's not a lot of money. It is kind of a lot of years, but not a lot of money. I mean, and the years thing is maybe good because who knows how Steven Adams will be. Steven Adams also doesn't play back-to-backs. Steven Adams, can get hack-a-shacked off the floor as well, so that's when you can bring in Clint Capella. We saw it in the postseason. The Rockets were at their best running a double-big lineup. I can only imagine how good a double-big lineup would look like with a Şengün, a Steven Adams, a Durant, an Amen, and VanVleet. Also with, being able to bring Dorian Finney-Smith off. I mean, what a steal for the Rockets to also get Finney-Smith. Those two signings, especially the Finney-Smith signing, I love the Finney-Smith signing for them. The Lakers and Rob Pelinka were apparently going around telling teams that he has a bum knee, trying to take his value, maybe bring him back, but his camp ends up finding that out, so he leaves Lakers, and that leaves the Lakers in a weird position, in my opinion. But now he's coming over here to the Houston Rockets, where this is a guy that could. I don't want to say it's Finney-Smith that puts you over the top. I think it's Durant, obviously, that puts you over the top. But to me, it solidifies it that this Houston Rockets team, I think that they're legit. They're a top 3 team in the West with Denver and the Thunder. And in today's age of parity, where we haven't seen a back-to-back champion since the Heat, I think, the Warriors, where we haven't seen a back-to-back champion since the Warriors. I think the Houston Rockets have put themselves in a prime position to win the NBA Finals next season. You brought back VanVleet, a guy who knows how to run the show for you, is an unselfish player, has won a championship. The same is said for Durant, is a guy that's going to lift up the half-court offense of the Rockets. If you remember, there was a time last season where the Rockets were bottom 2 offense in the NBA. And I still think there will be times this season where the offense looks a little clunky, a bunch of guys that are 3-and-D guys, and 3-and-D guys can be funny when the three-point shot's not falling, and then obviously VanVleet's not some sort of crazy scorer, Şengün's not some sort of crazy scorer, so the whole situation is kind of interesting. Sorry, I just got this weird text. But I still think that this offense will figure itself out with Kevin Durant, and they'll be just fine. I see this as a team that's probably going to be probably not top 10 in offense, but definitely probably top 5 in defense. So this Houston Rockets team is personally my winner of the NBA offseason. Moving on to the Indiana Pacers, they let Miles Turner walk. They don't bring in anybody besides Jay Huff. I like the Jay Huff trade. You gave up 2 second-round picks, I think it was, to bring in a guy who I think will end up starting center for you next season. And I would rather have him start at center over Tony Bradley. Jay Huff is able to shoot the three-point ball, and that's really, 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 really important for this Pacers team that like to cut through the middle of the court, right around the elbows and stuff. So having Jay Huff to spread the floor is good. I still think this team will easily look their best in a small ball look with Obi Toppin at the 5 next to Siakam. Maybe even Jarris Walker can do that a little bit as well. I liked the Cam Jones draft pick, like I mentioned. Maybe he can end up being a backup ball handler. I hope they end up bringing back James Johnson. I hope James Johnson's on this team forever, like a Udon Haslam situation. But yeah, I like the Jay Huff signing. I still do think it's nasty work that they let Miles Turner walk. I understand that the ownership did not want to pay the luxury tax in a season where Halliburton wasn't going to play, but and you obviously aren't contenders. But to me, I think that's kind of bogus because Halliburton will be back in 2 years, and this team still will be young, so I don't like it. But what I do like is maybe we're going to see more development from Benedict Mathurin, Jarris Walker, Aaron Nesmith. All offensively, we'll see Siakam coming into his own in Indiana even more than what we saw in the postseason without Halliburton. And hopefully all these guys will be much, much better ball players next to Halliburton when he returns in a year from now. But to me, this team is low-key better than the Celtics. I don't understand why people are saying this team is not good. I don't understand how people are saying that this isn't. I still think the Indiana Pacers could be a top 8 seed in the East with how weird the East is. I think they're better than Boston. I haven't liked the offseason for Indiana just because I didn't like them letting Miles Turner walk. I didn't like hearing that they lowballed the guy, but I think they did make a good trade for Jay Huff. I did like that move for them. I'm curious to see maybe who they bring if they bring on anybody else on a vet's minimum. Now, Los Angeles Clippers, they traded Norman Powell in a 3-team trade with the Jazz and the Heat, and they bring in John Collins. I like this for them. Now you can slide Kawhi to the 4. Derrick Jones Jr. we'll see one of these two guys start at the 4, probably more likely John Collins. John Collins can space the floor for you. He's a good shooter. He provides even more size for this team. This team was undersized at times this season outside of Zubac. I like the Brook Lopez signing. He's his defensive, where he's good defensively and where he's bad defensively lines up with Zubac, so your defense stays the same. He's a great floor spacer, and him coming off the bench is definitely a lot better than him starting. So I like this move for Los Angeles. You brought back Batum on a smaller contract, and I really just don't have much to say outside of that. I don't want to keep downing the Clippers. Like, looking at this team, like with the health of Kawhi and the age of Harden, especially how bad he was, efficiency-wise last season. He was good everywhere else besides efficiency. I don't really know if I think this is like a top 6 seed in the West, but I doubted them last year, and I doubted them the year before that, and they made me eat crow both years, so I won't be doubting them this year, but I do have my eye on them. I do have an eyebrow raised about this team. Ben Simmons is still a free agent. I think the Warriors should go out and sign Ben Simmons. We talked about how thin that team looks. Ben Simmons isn't some great NBA player, but I do think it would be worth bringing him on. Now we finally get to everybody's favorite, the Los Angeles Lakers. Luka, Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Rui, and you brought on DeAndre Ayton on a 2-year, $16 million deal, I believe. This is Ayton's last chance to earn another big or is it a 1-year 8? I think it's 1 year. I think it's 2 years with a player or a team option, one of the two. For that second year, obviously, but Ayton has to play motivated. He has to be the best version of himself like he was in 2021 with Phoenix. If not, this is a guy that's going to be getting small contracts for the rest of his career, which is crazy when you consider that he was the first overall pick in the same year that Luka went third, and that DeAndre Ayton did get the rookie max extension. They brought back Jackson Hayes. I hate that for them. They drafted a Deuterio. I do like that pick. Alex Len is gone, thank God. Gabe Vincent and Dalton Connect are still here. I don't know why. You should have, maybe packaged these guys by now. I don't mind the Jake LaRavia signing. I low-key do think that's a good signing for them to go out and get Jake LaRavia. He's just going to be some added depth to this team. He can shoot the 3-ball. But I don't know who's going to be the primary defender for this team. Who of this group of 5 is going to be your point of attack defender? 41-year-old LeBron James, Rui Hachimura with his slow feet, Austin Reeves or Luka Doncic. Who is the primary defender for this team? It won't be anybody off this bench. I mean, it could be Jared Vanderbilt, but you're not sticking Jared Vanderbilt on a fast guard. So I low-key think the Lakers, I think that there's no way in hell this Lakers team is a 3 seed again. I just don't see it. I think that this team has a lot to do still. They keep signing guys to 2 years deals like they did with DeAndre Ayton and Jake LaRavia. So I know in 2027 that's what they're looking ahead to. They're looking to build this team around Luka Doncic starting in 2027. But if that's the case, I think you should trade Austin Reeves. If that's the case, I think maybe you could trade a Dalton Connect. or a Gabe Vincent or a January Vanderbilt and try to get some capital and maybe a guy who has more control. So I don't know. I don't like this Lakers team at all. I do like the Ayton signing. Like you had to go and get a center. You had no choice. So it is a good idea to get Ayton. He has to play motivated. Now there is going to be a lot of distractions and bright lights in LA, but at the same time, playing next to LeBron and Luka, it doesn't get better for you. The lobs will be there. The communication on the floor with LeBron will be there. But this team, to me, I don't see them winning a playoff series. Hell, I don't see them winning more than 2 playoff games, and I really don't know where they're going to finish in the best Western Conference we've seen in quite some time. I really don't know. This Lakers team is very interesting. Bronny's going to get legitimate minutes. I mean, look at this. He's legit, like, at worst, he's the 11th or 12th guy on this team, and there's no way all 10 of the guys ahead of him, don't miss some time at one point or another. So it'll be funny to see Bronny get some legitimate NBA minutes. Now on to Memphis, who traded away Desmond Bane. We talked about that trade. I liked what they did by using the 16th overall pick to go up and get Cedric Howard. I like that for them. I do like the Ty Jerome contract. It's not very big. You brought back Cam Spencer on a very cheap deal. You brought in Jacques Landale to add depth because Zach Edey won't be healthy to start the season. Brandon Clark can never stay healthy. You brought back Santi Aldama on not that bad of a contract. You still have Vince Williams. I imagine a world where we see Jalen Williams slide over to the 2, and we could see Santi and Cedric and Vince all get legit minutes at the 3. I think the 3 will kind of be the rotating door. And the 4 as well. I think the 3 and 4 will be a rotating door as Edey gets nursed back to health, and I just don't see a huge role for Caldwell Pope. But for Memphis, if Caldwell Pope could bounce back, which I doubt, it could be a good deal for them. They're probably going to reach a buyout as well with Cole Anthony, so he won't be here. You don't have to worry about him. But it'll be interesting to see how Cedric Howard kind of gets, into the swing of things. The same thing with Gigi and Vince, with just so many other guys. What's the role for Scottie Pippen after a fantastic season last year? You brought in Ty Jerome, and I like that for them. I like the Ty Jerome pickup, especially considering John Morant's health concerns, ability to stay on the floor. So, yeah, it is definitely an interesting team here in Memphis. And, with so many teams competing in the West for 10 playoff spots, right? Like, I think the only teams in the West that if we look up NBA Western Conference standings, I'm just misspelled so much. In the NBA Western Conference standings, this Memphis team won 48 games last year, and that got them the 8th seed. I don't know if they're going to win more games. I mean, Sacramento, I think they have beat out, but at the same time, I think Dallas could easily be 9 wins better. I think San Antonio will be better. I mean, yeah, I think the only teams out west that you don't necessarily have to worry about is Utah and New Orleans. Although, who knows? Maybe Zion does end up staying healthy. Trey Murphy and Herb Jones end up staying healthy. So this Western Conference, there is a world where this Western Conference has 14 good basketball teams and then the Utah Jazz. Because I don't know. The Phoenix Suns, they're not a team to sleep on, in my opinion, with Devin Booker. But yeah, they're probably not a playoff team. So maybe we can probably write off Phoenix. We can probably write off the Pelicans. The Kings I want to write off, but they're trying very obviously to compete. So it's definitely interesting in the West. So I don't know if this Memphis team is enough to, I think it's enough to be in the playoffs. It's definitely enough to be in the play-in, 9-10 at the worst, but I don't think this team is good enough to win a playoff series. On to the Miami Heat. I really, really love the Norman Powell trade. You gave up nothing. Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love and like a second-round pick to go out and get Norman Powell. Norman Powell is a guy that last year at times could average 25 points a game. I do think his defense is terrible, so putting him next to Tyler Hero I think is a bad idea, but you have Davion Mitchell there. You have Aaron Wiggins. I liked the Fontecchio pickup for them. I think Fontecchio was really good 2 years ago. Was it Utah he was really good in? So, yeah, I think he could be really good. You still do have Terry Rozier, although I don't know why that is yellow. What is that? Non-guaranteed. So you still have Terry Rozier on this team. So who really knows what's going to go on? But this team has Eric Spoelstra. They're always very competitive. A lot of these guys had to play real minutes last season between Pele Larson and whatnot. Jaime Jaquez has been super disappointing. So I really don't know what the next step for him is, though. Kasparis Yakachonis, I don't know if it's true, but I did see on Twitter that he had a terrible summer league game, but it was so terrible that I low-key thought it was a joke. But yeah, this Miami Heat team will be a playoff team, obviously, next season. I don't know if they're going to avoid the play-in. I think at best this is a 6 seed. But I am excited to see what a full offseason with Davion Mitchell with Eric Spoelstra looks like. I am excited. I think Nikola Jovic could be the X factor for this team. I think if Nikola Jovic takes a step forward, Khalil Ware stays healthy, Bam Adebayo returns to form, and Norman Powell can repeat what he did last season, this is a strong team in the East. Maybe they win a playoff series depending on who they get matched up, but they're definitely better than they're much better now with Norman Powell than they were with Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. I would not have been impressed looking at this team if it was, a weirder lineup where, Aaron Wiggins was at the 3 or Aaron Wiggins was at the 2 and it was Kyle Anderson at the 3. So I like this Miami Heat team a lot more than I did before. They're definitely better than a team like the Pacers. They're definitely better than a team like the Boston Celtics. It'll be interesting to see sort of where they sit in the Eastern Conference this season. On to the Milwaukee Bucks. Are they better than the Milwaukee Bucks? The only reason I don't say yes with my chest is because of Giannis. That's the only reason. Because this team does not have a good point guard. I think it'll be Kevin Porter Jr. that ends up starting over Ryan Rollins here that they have in front of me. I hope Mark Sears makes the team. I think there's a chance that he does. Undrafted free agent. They brought back Bobby Portis. They brought back Taurean Prince on a minimum. They brought in Gary Harris on a minimum, Gary Trent on a minimum. So I do like all of those deals for this team. They brought back Jericho Sims after trading for him, so there's some big man depth. This team isn't terrible. You just need Kyle Kuzma to just play basketball, man. Be better. They gave up AJ Johnson for you, basically a first round pick. They just drafted him. And Chris Middleton as well, franchise legend. If Kyle Kuzma can even be 75% of what we've seen from him in years past, and if Kevin Porter Jr. can play how he did down the stretch of last season, and maybe a little bit in the postseason, the same can be said for Gary Trent. This team will definitely be a 5 or a 4 seed in the East, but it all rests on Giannis. If Giannis gets hurt, terrible, this team will be garbage. And as for the Miles Turner signing, I really like the Miles Turner signing. Brook Lopez had to go. He was not good, terrible in transition. Not that Miles Turner's good in transition, but he's better than what you had in I just said his name and now his name, Brook Lopez, right? But the problem with the Miles Turner signing is that you cut and extended the Damian Lillard contract. So now between Damian Lillard and Miles Turner, you're committing nearly $50 million to these two guys over the next 5 seasons. So really don't like that for them. But Miles Turner will fit in very nice next to Giannis. It's the exact center you need. You cannot have a traditional big next to Giannis. You need a floor spacer, and there really isn't a lot of those guys in the NBA. You can't really list a bunch of the best stretch bigs in the NBA. You can't really list 6 of them, right, without listing Miles Turner. So very good pickup for them in a vacuum. But when you consider the fact they had to cut Dame to make it happen, it's just a really messy situation. And this team has just really gone downhill since the Dame trade and since the, even worse, the Kyle Kuzma trade. So if they didn't trade for Kyle Kuzma, they'd have a lot more money to go out and do something. They would be able to develop A.J. Johnson. I do think this team should go out and go get, what's his name, one Rookie of the Year with Malcolm Brogdon. I think Malcolm Brogdon should be back on the Bucks on a minimum. I think he can set the table really nicely for what they got going on coming off the bench, because I do think Kevin Porter Jr. will start. Kevin Porter Jr. is a character. Obviously has the domestic violence issues, although he denies it, she denies it. She dropped the charges, even though it was very obvious that the situation had happened. But there are people in the NBA that have done worse, so it's just really weird. And I guess I'm only saying this because I was a Kevin Porter Jr. fan prior to what had happened. I felt bad for the kid. The kid has clearly struggled with a lot of mental health issues, and you'd probably attribute that to his situation growing up. But For Kevin Porter Jr., you bring him back on a 2-year deal. I think it was like 2 years, $11 million or something like that. This is it. This is like a really, really big year for the kid. And I think Kevin Porter Jr. could increase his value in this situation. So we'll see. On to the Timberwolves. I thought the Johan Berenger pick wasn't the best, but he could be the Rudy Gobert replacement if he develops. You bring back Julius Randle on a 3-year, 120, or was it 4-year, $120 million, or 3 years, $100 million contract. You brought back Naz Reid on a 4-year, $125 million contract to be a backup. So you gave out big paychecks to those two guys. You retain everybody else. I really don't know what's going to happen with this team. Their point guard situation is interesting. Anthony Edwards is gonna have to continue to develop as a point guard. And just because I think Mike Conley will eventually sort of be unplayable this season, especially in the postseason, Rob Dillingham is going to get a lot more minutes this season. And at his size, you really do worry about him in the postseason. But I am interested to see what Rob Dillingham can do with his development, because personally, I think we live in a world where this team would be better off with a real point guard rather than Ant trying to play the point guard. And I wouldn't want Dante DiVincenzo to run the point. But I also do like some of the other guys that this team has in the rotation. Jalen Clark, I'm a big fan of. He was really fun to watch guard SGA last season. Leonard Miller and Terrence Shannon Jr. obviously was really good in the playoffs for Minnesota. Those three guys, I'm excited to see them sort of develop, and I'm really just interested to see what this Timberwolves team does. And I'm not ruling out the idea that there's a world where Rudy Gobert gets traded from this team in the next 2 seasons. New Orleans, maybe the biggest loser of the offseason. You trade away your first-round pick next season unprotected, or a pick swap. The better of the 2 picks between the Bucks and the Pelicans, even though it'll almost definitely be the Pelicans' pick, unprotected to Atlanta. So that's kind of part of the reason why I think Atlanta could be the winner of the offseason, to go draft Derek Queen. And now I like Derek Queen in a vacuum, but I think Derek Queen needs a true defensive center next to him. I think he'd be better suited as a power forward. Well, unfortunately for him, Zion Williams already occupies that spot for the Pelicans. And if you're Zion would have been a lot better if you had a stretch big like a Miles Turner next to him. You obviously don't have the money for a Miles Turner because you never did in the first place. But you're just in this you could have went out and made the Jay Huff trade and signed Kevon Looney instead of drafting Derek Queen. And then you're also, and I get it because this front office with Joe Dumars did not draft Yves Missy, but you're stunting his development by drafting Looney, or by drafting Queen and signing Looney. You're burying Missy, a guy that was good for you last season and I think he was an all-rookie player, and if he wasn't, he deserved to be. Then you drafted Jeremiah Fears. I don't know if I really like that, especially pairing him next to Jordan Poole. I don't know how he's going to develop. Jordan Hawkins, you can forget about him now at this point. You brought on Saddiq Bey. I like Saddiq Bey. He plays good defense, but he's coming off an ACL injury where he didn't really play, so I don't really know what's going on there. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, can they stay healthy? You hope so. I mean, this is a team where, if Zion played the full season, Murphy, Jones, Poole all played the full season, could be the 10 seed, the 9 seed. Maybe even better if Zion plays at that All-NBA level of talent that he has put on display at times. I just don't know how Queen is going to develop in this situation, playing next to Zion, a guy that wants to play coming downhill, and Queen wants to play face up. I don't know how this team is going to develop with Jeremiah Fears next to Jordan Poole. I don't know how Yves Missy is going to develop with Kevon Looney, because Looney's a traded. I just don't know. This team is really interesting, and DeJounte Murray will be eventually returning from his was it Achilles or ACL injury? I don't remember, but he'll eventually be returning, and this team is just a little bit of a mess in my opinion. So I think the Pelicans are the big losers of the offseason. New York Knicks, they went out and they signed Mike Brown as their head coach. I like that for them. I think their offense will be more unique, but I don't know about the defense. I'll tell you that much. You bring in Jordan Clarkson, negative defender. You bring in Yabusele. I like that for you. He can space the floor just a little bit. And you're still looking at DeLon Wright and Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet and Precious Achiuwa all on the market. I'd imagine they bring back one of those few guys. It'll probably end up being Landry Shamet. But this team, man, this defense is not going to get better. I mean, Cat, terrible. Brunson, terrible. Miles, small. Clarkson, terrible. Kolek, terrible, like small. And who's your backup small forward? Is it gonna be Yabusele and Josh Hart? Like, I just don't know what's going on with New York. I think this is a team that's still super talented. Like this, your top. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, you have 9 guys, and you have Kolek who will be playing. So you have 10 guys, right, for the upcoming season. But what about what happens in the postseason? I think this team is going to run it. Even if they make it back to the conference finals, I think they're going to run into the same trap again where, Cat isn't a good defender, and Brunson's a terrible defender, and I just don't see this Knicks team getting over the hump. I really do think they should have traded Cat for KD. I don't think the Suns wanted that, but I think Cat should have been gone this offseason. You literally would have been better off with an elite offensive player where Josh Hart is here at the power forward position or small forward position, and Mitch Rob at the starting 5. So I think this Knicks team has got loads of talent. Brunson, OG, Mikal, Hart. Not offensively, but defensively, rebounding, passing, everything else besides scoring, Hart is very talented at. Cat, what we saw from Mitchell Robinson in the postseason, what we saw from Yabusele at times last season, there's talent on this team. I just don't know how it's going to mesh under a new head coach, and I just don't know how it's going to work in the postseason. So, I don't know. That's how I feel about New York. Moving on to, what is this? Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City made some interesting moves. They traded away Dylan Jones, a guy who they traded up into the first round last year to get to draft in the first round. They traded him away to the Wizards for pretty much nothing. They got back, and whoever they got back in return, they waived. But obviously they gave SGA the max extension. They gave Chet Holmgren recently a max extension. They still have iHeart. They've re-signed J-Dub on a team, like, not J-Dub. They've re-signed Jalen Williams, the center, on a more friendly deal. J-Dub, the small forward, is still on a team-friendly deal. Nikola Topic has looked good in summer league so far, and he'll be back this season, so that's almost like your draft pick. Thomas Sorber, I'm excited to see get some playing time because they always deal with injuries, and their big room does OKC. I don't know, man. Like, they're obviously going to. I think they're obviously going to be the best team in the NBA again. We haven't seen a repeat champion, and they really just didn't need to do much, and they shedded some guys. They didn't really get much in return, but they did right by those guys. So I like what the Thunder have continued to do. So good draft for them with Sorber. Yeah, and obviously they did what they needed to do and did right by their players, the ones that they traded away, and the guys that they've given out the max extensions to. Orlando, you signed Tyus Jones. I really like that. Good backup. You brought in Noah Penda, who will end up being the Jonathan Isaac replacement when you probably end up trading him. You brought back Mo Wagner on a 1-year deal. I still think you need to trade Goga Bitadze. You signed you drafted Jace Richards later in the draft. I really like that for them. If Jace, Suggs, and Bane can shoot the three-point ball, this team will be a scary team in the East. They'll be a top 4 team in the East, and they could be a top 4 team in the East without that three-point shot. But if Jace isn't an effective rookie, if Suggs doesn't return to his original three-point form that we saw a year ago, I don't think that Desmond Bane alone is going to lift this team out of the cellar of three-point shooting. I mean, they weren't even close to the 29th ranked team in three-point shooting. So, to me, Orlando, they're going to be really good, but they need some of these guys that they've already had on the roster, like a Jalen Suggs, a Franz Wagner, and even a Paulo, to grow as three-point shooters. Specifically, Paulo needs to grow as a three-point shooter, especially after getting the max rookie extension. Franz needs to return to form, and Suggs needs to return to form. If all of that happen, I do see a world where this team could be a conference finalist. I don't see a world where they win the conference, but I do see a world where they could be in the conference finals if all of that happens. On to the Sixers. This team's a total unknown. You don't know what you're going to get with Joel Embiid. You don't even know if he's going to be healthy to start the season. You don't know the same thing could be said for Paul George. You brought back Kyle Lowry on a vet's minimum. You signed Justin Edwards to a 2-year deal, vet's minimum. You signed Jabari Walker to a two-way. You signed Trenton Wofford to a minimum, which I really liked that for them. I think it's a really good replacement for Yabusele. You still have Kelly Oubre. You still have Eric Gordon. You drafted VJ Edgecombe, who has looked amazing, although been a shot chucker in the summer league. And Jared McCain obviously will be coming back from injury. This 76ers team, if fully healthy, I mean a full season from Embiid, as full as you're going to get from him. Paul George at least gets back to 85% of what he was 2 seasons ago. McCain stays healthy. Maxey stays healthy. And everybody else does what they're supposed to do. This is a team that could easily be top 5 in the East, maybe better. But there's no way that Embiid stays healthy, even to an Embiid's, older standards of what his health used to be, right from like 2019 to 22. Paul George, I doubt he gets to even 80% of what he was 2 seasons ago. And then you're stuck with 3 guards. Like, they have McCain listed as the small forward here on the depth chart. Hell no. He's going to be your 6-man backup behind Maxey and Oubre. And then you'll see George start at the 3 and probably Watford starting at the 4. It's a very interesting team. It all depends on health. But I don't see the health happening for them. Quentin Grimes is still a restricted free agent as well. He wants $25 to $30 million. I thought it was more realistic that he gets 17 or 18. It's clear that everyone else sort of agrees with that because nobody's given him an offer sheet yet. This team could really benefit from having Quentin Grimes. I just think it's going to be a rude reality check when he ends up not getting that $25 million that he wants, and I think at best maybe gets $22.5 million. Phoenix Suns, I think they've done a good job this offseason. They don't own any of their first-round picks till like 2030, 2032 or something like that. So to bring in, Jalen Green, who we all thought they were going to move off him really quick. They didn't. Okay. Devin Booker can run the point. Maybe Green can develop the ability to run the point more here in Phoenix, be a better distributor. I think that they can coach him along. They brought in a new coach, the assistant from the Cavaliers. I think Ott was his name. I think that could be fun. He's had a lot of really good offenses as an assistant in the NBA. So I'm not counting out Phoenix. This is a team that the same thing what I just talked about with the Sixers, where you don't think things are going to go perfect. I don't think things will go well for Phoenix. I think this will be a tumultuous up and down season in Phoenix. I do. But with that being said, you have your scoring with Jalen Green and Devin Booker, right? And Mark Williams. If Mark Williams can stay healthy, you have your defense in your wings with Dillon Brooks, Ryan Dunn, Royce O'Neal, and you have defensive bigs. Even though I know he's a rookie, he'll have limited minutes in Kaman Malawach. You also signed Rasheer Fleming. I don't know why they have him listed as a 2. He'll be playing the 3 alongside Nigel Hayes, who, interesting that they brought him back. I think he just won MVP of whatever league he was playing in overseas. So I like that for them. I like that good for Nigel Hayes get back into the NBA. And they still have Nick Richards. So they have depth at the center position, which they didn't have last year. They have the worst center room in the NBA a year ago between Mason Plumlee, Nikola, not Jokic. You know who I'm talking about. The guy they sent to Charlotte, he was a Trailblazer. Anyways, they had the worst center room last year. Not that their center room's elite, but you definitely upgraded it this season. So I am interested to see where Phoenix goes. This team is really just missing a point guard. And if there was a team, they brought back Colin Gillespie on the minimum. I would have rather seen them gone out and brought in Malcolm Brogdon on the minimum, because I think Brogdon's a better winning basketball player at this point in his career, but I guess the elbow must be really scary. Obviously, they have all these guys that are still unrestricted free agents, and I don't think they'll be bringing back any of them. Portland Trailblazers, this is a really weird team. They're kind of setting themselves up to compete this season by keeping Robert Williams and trading for Drew Holiday and keeping Jeremy Grant as well, although I don't think anyone's trading for Jeremy Grant. And then they also obviously drafted Yang Hansen. They have him listed as a power forward. He cannot play power forward. He just can't. This team will be interesting. Scoot Henderson I'll be interested to see his development. This is a big, boomer bust year for Henderson. Can he at least be a true point guard who can be defensive? Kind of maybe play the Jrue Holiday role. So I know this isn't 2K where you just, mentor a guy and give him badges, but we could see that from Jrue Holiday to Scoot Henderson. Shadion Sharp will have a chance to have a runway in front of him with no more Anthony Simons there. Denny Avia was really good for them last season. Donovan Clingan will have a chance to develop legit and play a lot of legit minutes with DeAndre Ayton gone, and Robert Williams is still there. So this is a really interesting team. Portland is going to try to compete, but I think if there's a team that you're going to say who would you say is more likely to come up short, although they're trying to compete in the Western Conference between the Trailblazers and the Phoenix Suns, I say it's more likely that we see Portland come up short rather than a Phoenix Suns. It's important to remember that Jrue Holiday had the worst shooting year of his career last year, so I think there's a chance Holiday kind of repeats that in this situation. You still have Toumani Camara, obviously an amazing defender, first-team all-defense, so the defense of this team will be elite with Holiday, Camara, Matisse Thybulle, Robert Williams, Clingan with a year under his belt. But outside of that, I really, really don't know. I also hope Caleb Love makes this team as an undrafted free agent. That would be fun. But Trailblazers, it's weird to see them trying to make like a competing push, but I don't think it'll come to fruition for them. I think that they're gonna just miss out on the postseason. Now, on to the Sacramento Kings. One of the weirdest teams in the NBA. Definitely the Bulls of the West for sure. They signed Dennis Schroeder, who will probably be the starting point guard for them. They're trying to move off Malik Monk and potentially bring in Russell Westbrook. They're trying to move off Devin Carter. This isn't the front office that drafted him, even though he's a young, two-way or defensive guard with lots of control on his contract. You brought in Drew Eubanks on the minimum. You brought in Dario Saric because his contract expires after this year. You drafted Nick Clifford and you drafted Maxime Rhino. It's a weird team. I really don't know what's going to happen with them. I do think they can be in the postseason, or the plan, with DeMar, Sabonis, Levine, Schroeder, Keon Ellis. Like, if Malik Monk stays or if you bring in Russell Westbrook, I do think this team can compete. I just don't know what the long-term plan is for this team. I mean, Levine is older. DeRozan is old. Sabonis is on the older side. Schroeder is on the older side. Keegan Murray is really the only young guy on this team, and Keegan Murray is also the only guy in the starting five that is going to compete defensively every possession. Saric is not playable. I just don't know what's going to happen with this team. I don't think they have good depth. Their depth is unproven or not good. Their starting five doesn't play good defense. Doug Christie's got his hands full. I don't know where this team is going to go. It's really ugly for me. I think there's a chance that Sacramento gets jumped. I mean, last season they finished with 40 wins. And I truthfully believe this team is not much better. And I think that Dallas and Phoenix and San Antonio especially, and maybe even Portland, are much better. And now they have a 6-4 and 1 game lead over those teams respectively. But I just don't know how they hold on. So to me, Sacramento, another big loser of the offseason, but they were kind of set up to lose when they went out and traded for Levine and DeRozan. So this team to me is sort of a mess, and I don't know where they're going from here. San Antonio, this offseason, they went ahead and traded for Kelly Olynyk after Olynyk got traded to the Wizards. For the Wizards, I don't like that trade. I thought Kelly Olynyk provided the Wizards spacing that they didn't have at the 5 position that would allow for guys like Sarr and Keyshawn George to look better. The Spurs also brought in Luke Cornett on a 3-year, $40 million deal. A little rich in my opinion, but not bad. You needed a backup center, and I like the insurance, I guess, of bringing in a Kelly Olynyk. Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson. I'm interested to see how all of these guys develop. Carter Bryant was a fantastic draft pick, an absolute home run at 14. I'm excited to see him continue to grow. And then Dylan Harper, I think there's a world Yeah, maybe Dylan Harper is their sixth man. I don't know. This would be a fun team, the San Antonio Spurs, but I don't think they're going to be as good as people might think. I think this is a team that could jump up to the 7 or 8 seed. I think 7 is probably where they cap out. I would be very, very surprised if this Spurs team is a non-playing team. It's important to remember that they were like the 11th seed when Vic was healthy, so I can't really see them climbing up crazy high. I mean, they could be due for a Rockets-esque jump, like the Rockets jump for the 11th seed to the 2 seed, but I have a hard time seeing them being better than a Nuggets. I have a hard time seeing this team be better. I have a hard time seeing this team being better than the Nuggets, the Rockets, the Thunder, those Timberwolves, so and maybe even the Mavericks as well. So I really like the San Antonio Spurs. They're going to be a very fun team to watch with Dylan Harper, Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Carter Bryant. I just don't know how great they can be. I think if they're going to take that jump that people are kind of predicting for them, you need to see Jeremy Sohan take a massive step forward in his development. Castle needs to become a consistent three-point shooter. De'Aaron Fox needs to return to that 2022-2021 form when he was an all-NBA level player. And obviously Victor Wembanyama needs to stay healthy. If those things don't happen, like all three of those things don't happen, there's no world where this team is a top 4 seed in the West. So yeah, I think this is a team that's going to be 6 through 8, probably more like 7 through 8 in the West. Definitely going to be in the play-in. I'd be shocked if this team wasn't in the play-in. Moving on to Toronto. Boy, is this team a mess. Boy, do they have so much money locked up. But like I said earlier, I think there's a real world where this team trades one of RJ Barrett or Emmanuel Quickley. They just got so many things going on. Brandon Ingram didn't play for them, but they went out and gave him an extension anyways, which I can't entirely blame them because guys don't usually sign with Toronto in free agency. The Jakob Poeltl extension hasn't kicked in yet, but I don't like how long it is. But obviously, it's important to keep Jakob Poeltl. I like Tom Murray-Boyles as a draft prospect, but I don't really think he's going to work out too well here in Toronto. Ochai Agbaji, Jacoby Walter, and Jamal Shead can all be something, but I just don't know what that something is yet. Grady Dick, I think you're going to need him to take a massive step forward as a three-point shooter because there isn't a lot of three-point shooting on this team between Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, and Emmanuel Quickley. Although I do think RJ Barrett took a massive step forward, so if it was up to me, I'd like to see them get off quickly rather than RJ Barrett. Personally, I think this team has loads of talent. I think they have a very, very good coach. I'm forgetting his name, but I know it ends in itch. Quickley's a good NBA player, so is RJ Barrett. I like Brandon Ingram, although his contract is pretty rich. Scotty Barnes is a good NBA player. Jakob Poeltl is a good center. I think that all of the guys that they have drafted in the last couple of years between Jacoby Walter, Ochai Agbaji, CMB, Grady Dick, Jamal Shead. These are all very good draft picks in my opinion. I just don't know how they're going to develop. Jonathan Mogbo as well. So it's just going to be interesting to see how this team sort of comes along. I do think they have the talent to be a top 6 team in the East. Though most definitely, I think people that don't think this team is easily a play-in team. There's no way in how this team isn't a play-in team. I just don't think that they're going to avoid the play-in. It would really suck to have this much money on your bill and not, win in the play-in and get into the postseason and get the extra revenue from that. So, interesting situation that Toronto's in. I think long-term this team's a little screwed, but I think that people need to stop bashing them as much until we finally see them all on the floor together. And now we're down to our last 2 teams. Utah Jazz went out and drafted Ace Bailey. Boy, has he looked good. But they also traded away John Collins. And they're going to end up buying out Kevin Love. They also brought in Yusuf Nurkic. They drafted Walter Clayton, basically burying and ending the Keontae George experience with Bryce Sensabaugh coming back and dropping 37 points the other night in the Summer League or last night. Isaiah Collier, I really like. I hope he gets a chance to continue to develop because I think he could be a better NBA player than Walter Clayton. I just would hate to see him get buried or lose his minutes so early in his career. If you're Utah, what you need this season You desperately need Sensabaugh to stay healthy and develop. You desperately need Filipowski to develop. I was not a fan of him as a prospect. I'm still not a fan of him now. His whole situation is weird, but you need him to develop. You need Cody Williams, a top 10 pick last year, to show you something. And then obviously it'd be nice to see Isaiah Collier take a step forward as a scorer and be a lot more efficient. Everything else, who gives a damn? You're buying out Kevin Love. You don't care about, Keontae George, it appears. You don't care about Yusuf Nurkic. I'd like to see maybe you trade him, but I don't think anyone wants that contract. You don't care about Kyle Anderson. And you're stuck with Lauri Markkanen because the teams that were interested in trading for Lauri Markkanen have already moved on and made different moves. Like the Warriors went out and the Warriors got Jimmy Butler. So this team is very weird. I expect them to be the NBA's second or third worst team. And you just got to hope that Ace Bailey is legitimately the 1A guy, is your alpha dog, is your scorer. If that situation gets any worse than it was in the pre-draft situation, Utah is in deep crap. Now on to the last team. My favorite team of the offseason. Not my winner of the offseason, but my favorite team of the offseason. You went out and you drafted Trey Johnson 6th overall. You went out and drafted Will Riley later in the draft. You went out and you gave up 2 second-round picks to get Cam Whitmore Jr., a guy who averages 20 points a game when he starts. You went out and traded a second-round pick and a guy you didn't care about for Dylan Jones, a guy who was a first-round pick last year. You still have A.J. Johnson, who you traded for last season. Bob Carrington, I think, will develop nicely. I think will grow as a point guard with C.J. McCollum and Marcus Smart talking in his ear. You still have Bilal Coulibaly. Keyshawn George showed a lot of promise as a rookie, and I like Alex Sarr as well. I would have rather you held on to Kelly Olynyk and just forget about Richaun Holmes, because I think Kelly Olynyk could have given this team a lot of spacing and allowed for guys like Sarr, Bilal, Bub, Johnson to all develop and look much better in space, because there won't be very good spacing with this team. And this team won't be good. This Wizards team might not win 24 games, but you have a lot of guys here who I think will develop over time. I think this is the right way to go. I mean, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 young guys, and I did not count Bilal. I did not count Corey Kispert. Hell, I actually missed Will Riley. Like, okay, now you're up to 10. You have 10 young guys. And, Justin Champagnie is not that old. He could be something. So I really, really, really like what the Wizards have done in this offseason. They still don't have a true point guard, but who knows? Maybe they try and develop Bob Carrington into one. And I do think there is a world where this team does trade a combination of CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart, 2 contenders who are trying to win, and maybe even a Corey Kispert, because Kispert is buried in this team. Unless Chris Middleton is traded before the season starts, there is no role for a Corey Kispert, let alone a Will Riley, and maybe even an A.J. Johnson. So I really like what the Wizards did. And now, before I move off, there's 2 guys that I want to circle back to and talk a little bit more about. And that would be DeAndre Ayton as well as Jordan Clarkson. So DeAndre Ayton to the Lakers, I said I liked it because you're going out and you're getting a center when you very much need a center. Like, you desperately needed a center if you were the Lakers. Ayton provides a guy who can act as a lob threat. He acts as a guy who can protect the rim. He acts as a guy who can set good screens. He does all of that for you. He is so much better than a Jackson Hayes. He is unbelievably better than a Markieff Morris or an Alex Len. I do worry about everything else. This is a guy who has not looked good in 3 years, or at least hasn't looked like what his peak in 3 years. And a person like myself said, the Bucks traded for Kyle Kuzma. If Kyle Kuzma can kind of tap into what he was 3 years ago, and maybe he cared about basketball a little bit more, the Bucks will be fine. Well, Kuzma couldn't do that. In fact, he was unplayable in the playoffs. And I'm not saying that's going to be Ayton, because I do think there's a world where even if DeAndre Ayton is bad for the Lakers, he'll still walk onto the floor and average 14 and 10 with this team. That's DeAndre Ayton being bad for this team. I think if DeAndre Ayton peaks with this team, We're talking about a guy who can average 17.2, 16.9 points per game to go along with 12.5, 13 boards. Like, I think Ayton could be... He's definitely one of the bigger swings this offseason, but a necessary swing, a necessary risk. I still would rather have seen the Lakers gone out and added other people as well. I would have rather pretty much any other center that is not Jackson Hayes. I mean, this team should go out and get Precious Achiuwa. This team should go out and bring in a guy on a vet minimum who is a point of attack defender and maybe nothing else. I mean, if anything, if I'm the Lakers, low key, why not package? I hate that my computer's kind of messing around here, but why not go package Gabe Vincent and Jared Vanderbilt? Maybe not Jared Vanderbilt. Package Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber and see if the Wizards will take that for Marcus Smart. I don't know. That doesn't sound like a bad idea in my opinion. I think the Lakers, this team, where I like the DeAndre Ayton addition, they're still desperately missing a true point of attack defender, and they're still desperately missing depth, not just in general, but specifically at the center position. Because while Jackson Hayes isn't like a terrible backup center, God forbid Ayton goes down. God forbid. Right? So that's my opinion. Fledged out really on the DeAndre Ayton situation. And then Jordan Clarkson for New York, I like it, but this is not, again, like we just talked about with Kyle Kuzma, this is not Jordan Clarkson of multiple years ago. This is Jordan Clarkson of now. And right now, Jordan Clarkson has not been good. He has not been efficient. He hasn't played good defense in a while. And so it's hard for me to imagine he really taps back into it. But given he'll have a lesser offensive role, I do think there is a chance he could do that. I like Jordan Clarkson as an NBA player. He inspired me to get my first tattoo, the peace sign. So I hope it works out for New York, and I hope it works out for Jordan Clarkson. And if it reaches its full potential, and Jordan Clarkson provides you this elite shooting, that's amazing. You really, really need that if you're the Knicks. But the problem is, once again, like the Lakers, you do not have good defense. Not with your two stars of Cat and Brunson on the floor, and you really don't have good defensive depth outside of OG, Mikal, Hart, and then obviously at the center position, Mitchell Robinson. So that's how I, more fleshed out opinion on those two guys. Let me go through, and we'll close this so things start running a little bit faster. And let's just make sure before I get closer to wrapping up the podcast that I did not miss anything. Clippers re-sign. Okay, we're just going to go. Clippers re-sign James Harden. Grizzlies give the max extension to Jaren Jackson. All right, let's just look for somebody I missed. As I scroll to Luke Garza to the Celtics. Garza, good per 36 minutes. I don't like him very much, so I would have rather seen them gone out. I still think the Celtics should go out and get Delano Banton. I would have rather seen the Celtics get B-Ball Paul. But yeah. Garza was half the paycheck, so that makes sense. The Luke Kennard contract, 1 year, $11 million. I really like that. Magic get Tyus Jones for 1 year, $7 million. I think it's a shame that the Bucks didn't pony up the $7 million for Tyus Jones. I think Tyus Jones could have done a lot for the Milwaukee Bucks, but at the same time, I think Malcolm Brogdon still being available is who the Bucks should go out and get. Kings, I do not like the Dennis Schroeder signing. I just don't know what's going on with them. I told y'all I like the Tim Hardaway Jr. signing to the Nuggets. Don't really care for the 3 years, $48 million for Duncan Robinson. Hornets, Spencer Dinwiddie. I didn't understand that because you already brought back Trey Mann, so now I just feel like you're stepping on everybody's toes with that signing. I like the 76ers getting Trenton Wofford. Who else? And then Chet Holmgren got the 5 years maximum that could have reached $250 million today. That was announced today. So let's see real quick. We'll close that. And now we're really starting to wrap things up here, guys. Let's talk about the best remaining free agents according to ClutchPoints.com. Obviously, Damian Lillard is still available. I think there's a real world where nobody signs Damian Lillard this offseason because it's probably going to be a waste of money if he only wants 1 year. I think there's a real world where Damian Lillard sits out this offseason, rehabs on his own, gets a chance to be around his kids, his family, and then he comes back next season where the money will be massive. He could get a good short-term contract at age 34. It'll be a big risk for whatever team gives him that, but you know a team will be. Russell Westbrook is still a free agent. Yes, the Kings are linked to this guy. I would hate if the Kings gave up Malik Monk to get him, but I think whoever gets Malik Monk in that deal, if that does happen, would be massive. I also think, okay, they have the Knicks here listed for Russell Westbrook. I wouldn't hate that for them. I think Russ could provide them with very good defense, although your shooting will be spotty. But hey, that counteracts the Jordan Clarkson signing. So I do think, hey, maybe the Knicks, should go out and should go get Russell Westbrook. Gary Payton, unsigned. I would like to see him go back to the Warriors. But who knows? Al Horford is likely going to be a Warrior when they I think as soon as the Warriors figure out the Jonathan Kuminga situation, Al Horford's going there. I kind of doubt the Celtics trade Anthony Simons, after just acquiring him. I think the Celtics trade Anthony Simons at the deadline. I don't think they trade Anthony Simons now. But if they did, maybe the Celtics would be able to bring back Al Horford. Amir Coffey is an unrestricted free agent after shooting 41% from deep last season. He isn't 30 yet. I'm interested to see who brings him on. They don't have any teams listed for him. They do think the Clippers could bring him back, especially now that they just traded Norman Powell. So who knows? I like Amir Coffey. I think the Clippers, I would believe in a lot more if the Clippers were to bring back Amir Coffey. Chris Paul, I think Chris Paul is going to be in Phoenix, or the Clippers would be a very geriatric bench for the Clippers if it was Brook Lopez and Chris Paul running pick and rolls on that bench. But he wants to be close to his family. I think this is the last year of his career, so I don't know. I do think Chris Paul could be a decent signing for some team. He could provide veteran leadership. So we'll see where Chris Paul goes. I think it's going to be Phoenix. And if he goes to Phoenix too, you can help him. You can have him help Jalen Green and Devin Booker, but more so Jalen Green, learn the ins and outs of being a point guard. Malik Beasley, obviously, unrestricted free agent as well. I think somebody will give him money if he's acquitted of this and he isn't, convicted on these gambling charges. Because if he is, he's banned from the NBA, unfortunately, which would be a really sad situation for Malik Beasley. You feel really terrible. But obviously, if it's true, then, it is what it is. You can't be doing that. You're throwing away what could be what was a promising career after the season. So Malik Beasley they have listed, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where he lands. Honestly, I don't think they have the money, but I wouldn't mind Orlando going out and getting him. They could use all the three-point shooting they could get. Jonathan Kuminga, yep, we know he's a restricted free agent. I talked about him already. Will be a Bull, a Heat, a King. Maybe he ends up somewhere else, but I really, 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 really doubt the guy ends back up in with the Warriors. Cam Thomas, I don't think anyone's going to offer him anything outside the net. So I just hope the kid gets a decent-sized bag for a short-term deal with Brooklyn, because you cannot have all those rookies play. Some of those guys are going to have to play in the G League, so bring back Thomas. Josh Giddey, not number one. Interesting. He wants $30 million a year. I think it's more likely he gets $25 million. I think the Bulls would be a forever playing team if they bring back Giddey. And I don't mean that to bash Giddey, but more so that Giddey could take what is not a great team right now and kind of get them over into the play-in, especially if this team brought in Kuminga, although the spacing on that Bulls team, if they had both Kuminga and Giddey, would be absolutely atrocious. And then, yes, they have Quentin Grimes, number one. I do think Quentin Grimes goes back to the Sixers. He was very, very, very good for them down the stretch of the season when everybody else was hurt, and now that's obviously not who he is truly in his heart of hearts. But I do think if they're able to bring him back on a $20 million, $21 million, $19 million a year deal for 3 years with player options and whatnot, I think that'd be very good for both parties. And I think the Sixers will be a top 6 seed. And if everyone stays healthy, maybe even a top 4 seed with Quentin Grimes back. Other guys that are still free agents, Precious Achiuwa, Plenty of teams that could use front court depth. Delano Ban, I think the guy's a bucket, especially his per 36 minutes. I'd love to see this guy with the Celtics again. Amoni Bates, already talked about him. I like Amoni Bates. I want to see him get a shot. I think Malcolm Brogdon being a free agent, as well as Chris Boucher, more so Malcolm Brogdon, I think will be a guy who you bring in on a vet's minimum, especially if you're a team like the Bucks, and that guy can do something for you. I think Boucher should go to a team that needs front court depth. Maybe that's a Pacers, or maybe that is like, I don't know. Maybe the Knicks could use Chris Boucher. Who else is still a free agent? Thomas Bryant's probably going to go back to the Pacers. Alec Burks, 33 years old. I don't know if he's coming back. Who else? Torrey Craig. I'd like to see the Celtics bring this guy back, but at 34, I kind of doubt it. Jay Crowder's out there. Jeff Downton Jr., shout out URI. He's probably playing overseas soon. Jeff Green's still a free agent. Who else do we got? I don't really, as I look through this list, I'm on the second page now, guys. I don't see anybody. Trey Lyles could be an interesting forward to bring in for some team, again, on a minimum. Kevin Knox Jr. is going to be out of the NBA this season. And now we'll wrap it up. We'll look at this last page. Who else is a free agent? Ben Simmons. The Celtics were linked to Ben Simmons last year. I don't think they'll be able to get him because I don't think Ben Simmons signs for the vet minimum. It could be like a 2-year, $11 million, $10 million deal. Who knows? Lamar Stevens, he was a Celtic recently. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. Deron Sharp did not get a team offer from Brooklyn, so he won't be over there. Yeah, that seems to be it. Lonnie Walker's a free agent. Ty Washington, Keaton Wallace, Anton Watson. Yeah, all right, and DeLon Wright too. So it'll be interesting to see how many of those guys end up with NBA jobs. But I can't think of. Let's look at NBA trades real quick. Let's just make sure before I get out of here that I'm not missing any NBA trades. We talked about the LA Clippers, Miami Heat, Utah Jazz trade. I liked it for all parties. I think it was really big for Miami. Like I said, I think it makes them a legitimate potential non-playing team for the Clippers. I like how it bolsters their size, and you're going to avoid giving Norman Powell a contract that he doesn't really deserve. Because personally, I'd be shocked if Norman Powell kind of had the same success he had last year. Talked about the Jay Huff trade. Talked about the Cam Whitmore trade. Oh, yeah, okay, so Miami got Simone Fontecchio in the Duncan Robinson deal. I mean, I like it for Miami. Get it by the apple. Bucks get off the Pat Connaughton money. Colin Sexton for Yusuf Nurkic. Hate it for Utah. Like it for Charlotte. Colin Sexton's a good player. Kobe Jones to the Thunder. Dylan Jones to Washington. Kobe gets waived by the Thunder. And Dylan Jones will get a chance to play in Washington. Hated the Isaac Okoro trade for Lonzo Ball. Terrible from the Bulls yet again. And then, all these draft day trades, guys trading back. I love that the Suns traded up to get Rasheed Fleming. I thought that was a fantastic move. Bulls traded back 10 picks again for cash. I thought that was really, really nasty work. I did not like that from them. The George Niang, Porzingis trade, hated that for Boston just because Niang was the return. Porzingis loved it for Atlanta. You're buying uber low on a guy that has to ball out this season. Pelicans trade, already talked about this one. Yep, already talked about all these trades. So that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I think next episode, we'll figure out what we want to talk about. Maybe we'll rank these teams by tier. I think that's probably what I'll do. I'll probably rank these NBA teams by tier. I want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode. I know it was a longer one, a little bit of a messy one, because I'm joining the free agency chit-chat so late. But a lot of really interesting moves. We saw some teams look a lot better, right? We also saw some teams get a lot worse. I think next season, it'll be interesting to see which one of these signings will have the biggest impact. How good will somebody like Ayton look with the Lakers? How much can KD take the Rockets over the top? Although I don't think that's a move we'll see the full effects of until the postseason. How can Jonas Valanciunas really help the Nuggets during the regular season? How will the Clippers offense look without Norman Powell? In the East, what will Miles Turner look like with Milwaukee? How will the Indiana Pacers be with Jay Huff as their starting center and no Tyrese Halliburton? How good can the Hawks be? Can the Hawks be a top 3-4 seed in the East? It'll be a lot of fun. Will the Raptors be a non-playing team? Who will stay healthy for the Sixers? I'm really excited for next season for the NBA. But thank you guys so much for watching listening or watching to today's episode. Like I said, I know it's a little bit messy. My first podcast in nearly 2 weeks now, but I just want to say thank you. I think 2 weeks on the dot. So again, thank you guys so much for listening. It really means the world to me. I'm excited to be back here. Summer League officially starts. Like the Vegas Summer League starts tomorrow. There's been like the California Classic tonight. I know the Salt Lake Classic and the one in Orlando has also been happening. I know Ace Bailey has been balling out. Bryce Sensabaugh has shown that he is too good to be there. And VJ Edgecombe's speed is the real deal. Anyways, thank you all for listening. I appreciate it so much. I love y'all. I hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your day. And I'll be back soon. Believe that.